Round 2 has just started, and our opponent is mulliganing to 6 on the play. We have a slow hand with 2 3 drops, a 5 and a 6 drop, but I'm not going to mulligan that. We are very happy to see more lands, or even better, one of the baubles to search for another basic. And if we draw spells, well, we have some more 5 and one more 6 drop, but we also have a lot of 2 to 4s that we can draw, which would fit perfectly into this curve. Vaporkin or the land untapping Satyr would be great draws, but like I said, lands are also fine. Okay, National Cursor means that we probably want Agent of Horizons to block it. Kind of a bad timing here. Let's see if we can actually trade these creatures off. There's a couple of tricks that we don't want to see here, but we kind of have to draw those out anyway, and we make sure that our opponent won't be developing his board if he plays one. Not too concerned about the activated ability on the agent. That isn't really important right now, because we are on the draw and the more control-ish deck from the looks of it. It looks like our opponent is debating what to do here. Even if he has a trick, it's not clear if he wants to attack and offer the trade, or if he wants to hold back for mana efficiency reasons. He also has to decide if I actually want to block. So it looks like a fair trade here. Oh wow. And a Planeswalker. Mana in... yeah, that would have been a great card to have. So this just gives him 2/2s with haste. And he could make mana with it, but that's very unlikely. Maybe once, but the ultimate is probably not happening. Not a bad draw. So let's see what we can do against this guy. Maybe just play the flyer and attack it. That sounds like a reasonable course of action. Still, had we known this, this trade wouldn't have happened. We know it for next game, where we will be on the play, and for the future. Lost in a Labyrinth, quite nice when we attack and face a double block, but we need to get the Chimera into play. We could actually have cast this with the plan of making a bunch of 2/2s of our own, but I actually don't want to trade my lands for our opponent's 2/2s. That wouldn't really accomplish much. This is an important turn. If our opponent doesn't have a flyer, he gets to make a giant creature by +1ing his Xenagos. It's difficult for me because I have to find out how Americans pronounce these names. In German it would just be Xenagos, but that's I'm pretty sure that's not how you would do it. Okay, it's only +3/+3 and trample, bestow aura. So Xenagos doesn't look to be doing much here. Actually, another 2/2, that's interesting. Basically losing it without much gain. Don't quite understand that, but happy to get the Planeswalker off the table, that's for sure. I'm not going to search here, because if we draw a land, I'm actually quite happy about it. Okay, now we basically can just play our 4/5 here, which is better than drawing cards, and we have Lost in the Labyrinth to keep up. Yeah, it's not amazing, but it's could be worse. We could even risk to double block the Satyr, the Enchanted Satyr, but maybe our opponent has a trick and attacks with everything. Then we actually get to eat his creatures with backup. I think that our opponent probably should have +1, giving him the chance to draw something to deal with the Chimera, but even if he doesn't, then he still gets the Satyr that he made last turn. It's a little more risky if we decide to pump this or use this in addition to the Chimera, but we don't have the board presence to do so, which means that killing the Planeswalker would have actually been a lot more difficult for us, with 3 attack steps also. 2 attack steps rather than 1. Opponent is down to 2 cards in hand. Only 3 spells cast so far. This might not look too bad. It's really interesting what happens before combat and then which creatures attack. This is going to be, yeah, really interesting. And we can't take 5 from the 5/5 forever. Oh, interesting. Time to feed. So the Satyr and my hero want to fight, and if it does, then opponent also gains 3 life. Yeah, we just respond with Lost in a Labyrinth. I think that's a worthy use of this trick. We will put this on the bottom, although now that I think about it, we still want to sacrifice the amulet at some point, which means that the scrying at this stage in the game isn't accomplishing as much as it could. I'm going to put this on the bottom as well. So now the hero takes 2, which is great because we can still block one of the 2/2s. And then our opponent proceeds to empty his hand with a measly 1/4. Okay, that worked out. So now it looks best to just use the amulet right now, get the shuffling out of the way, thinning our deck. We do make the previous scrying worse, but chances are that we want to use the amulet at some point anyway, so I want to do it as soon as possible. Agent of Horizons is also nice, especially if our opponent has another Planeswalker, but I'm hoping that isn't the case. Let's see. I don't think that we need anything in particular against the 5/5 because now we just have reasonable double block options, and it's really unlikely that our opponent draws an insane combo trick here. Vaporkin isn't great, but it's a spell. I'm just going to keep it. I think I need spells, and it doesn't matter too much what they are. Oh yeah, that's a pretty good set of cards. I'm also not attacking because I'm very far ahead in this game. So one way to lose it would be to be overly aggressive. Especially after this draw, there shouldn't be much need to be too aggressive. Thassa can just take this home, like she did in the last game. And if our opponent doesn't draw really well from this point on, feeling very good about our chances. Another Thessa's bounty, yeah. Let's just drop Thessa herself. Showing our opponent what's up. Don't think we need the horse. Thessa is active. We are just going to get in with the flyer because, yeah, there isn't much attacking for our opponent. $17. A Sedge Scorpion. Yeah, I think we're trying to win in 2 turns here. Don't think that winning this turn is possible. Yeah, we can't even make that many creatures unblockable. So 17. Or can we? We have 2 flyers for 5, so that's 12. And that would be another 9. So our opponent is on 3. Okay, let's do the math. Our opponent doesn't have blockers if we spend 1, 2. If we spend 6 mana, oh, we actually have 8. So yeah, I think then he's just dead. Let's see. So 5, 9, 10, 17. Unblockable. 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 And that's 17. Okay. Xenagos is a card that we have to keep in mind. It has only 3 loyalty, so we have a lot of ways to deal with it. And other than that, time to feed, we basically countered. And everything else wasn't all that exciting. Stymied Hopes might be a nice card against an early Planeswalker, but everything has to go right for that to work. Maybe not the card that we actually want. The more expensive cards are also not interesting. We actually have quite a lot of ways to threaten the Planeswalker, and that's worth quite a bit. The horse might not be amazing if... Well, it's bad if we want to kill a Planeswalker, and the 1/1s don't really work well against our opponent's 2/2s, should he have them. Yeah, we haven't really seen too much, but it's not clear to me if the horse is worth it, or if we should play a counter spell instead, simply because countering an early Planeswalker can make all the difference. I'm going to stick to the horse for now. We are on the draw again, and we have a 1-lander here, but a 1-lander that I quite like with Omen Speaker and Vaporkin to get us going, and a solid hand otherwise. I'm not going to mulligan with 2 draws to a 2nd land and the Amulet to find more. I think that this hand is perfectly fine. We definitely shouldn't be dead very quickly. Well, if this turns out to become... If this turns into a Planeswalker, then we might be in trouble, but then we might have been in trouble anyway, so... Looks like a 4-drop. Okay, more ramp. This is scary, being only on 2 lands, but it could be worse. The Satyr is a good blocker and guarantees the mana, whereas the Omen Speaker gets us closer to it. We kind of have to hope that the next card is a land anyway. Going to try to reach 4 mana as soon as possible. Our opponent is on 7 mana now. Let's hope he doesn't have anything crazy to do with it. That looks fine. And that looks fine as well. 2 3/3s. Think we can live with that. It's not bad by any means, but could be worse. So now things start to be a little dicey. We can just drop the Omen Speaker because the Vaporkins won't do anything, but we fail to draw land. And there they are. So let's just keep them. We are taking 6 here without any good blocks really. And then the Horizon Chimera is ready to be flashed in. Wow, it looks like our opponent has another expensive card. Maybe the +3/+3 in Trample. No, it's +2/+2 in First Strike. Which is also great, of course. We might actually want to block with the Omen Speaker, just to prevent 5 here. The Omen Speaker isn't really doing much. We can always Grip Tide the Disciple, but then our opponent has a 2/2 First Striker. If we take 8 here and 8 again the next turn, it's definitely not good either. I think blocking with the Omen Speaker and then just dropping the horse is probably our best bet. And by blocking with the horse, I mean that we drop the horse to block. Don't know if you'll survive this, but at least we now have answered the 5/5 First Striker, and we still have the Chimera and Grip Tide. I'm not going to upkeep the Chimera, I want to have that as a trick. And if I draw a land, I might actually want to play something else, or just keep the Satyr untapped. So, oh, I actually knew that the land was coming. So, yeah, so much about that. Let's see, we are getting another 1/1, which is good. We can drop Prescient Chimera, and that should halt our opponent's offense completely. Or we drop the Chimera, but then we take more damage this turn. A little more damage, 3 more damage. Yeah, we kind of have to have a little bit of board presence before we start saying go with our flash creature and our instant in our hand. So as long as our opponent doesn't have something crazy good here, we should be fine. Even the expensive Prey Upon isn't the end of the world, but it would make things a lot more difficult. Yeah, time to feed. There it is. So we go down to 7. Looks like the Acolyte isn't attacking. Stone Choke Giant. Creatures without flying your opponent's control can't block this turn. So this would be very good against our horse. It's also just a 5/4 that gets really huge. The Chimera becomes more and more important, but having Grip tied up is also quite valuable, so let's see. Dropping the Vaporkin doesn't really do anything. It's actually quite expensive for us if we do so. I think we can't risk it. We need our opponent to use the monstrous ability of Stone Shock Giant in a sense. On the other hand, we don't really want him to do that. But it's almost the only way I can see here how we could win this. It looks like that's happening. That's great. Yeah, Monstrosity. So now we could play the Chimera, and that would be allowed to block, but it's a lot better to just grip tight here. That means the Monstrosity doesn't come into effect. We have the chance to block the cursor here, but I don't think that we can afford to do that. Okay, we didn't draw a land for the bounty, and that's really awkward because we can't survive our opponent hitting us with everything. On the other hand, we really wanted to mill that giant away from our opponent. So now if we Thassa's bounty and our opponent just attacks with everything, then we take exactly 5 and go to 0. Had we blocked with the setter, then we needed to draw a land. But if we draw a land, then we can block with the setter. So that didn't make the difference. We can play the Chimera to block the cursor next turn, and then try to find another answer. It's not great, but I think it's what we have to do. I'm still not sure if I should drop the Vaporkin. It doesn't really accomplish anything, and I still might want to block with the setter, even though it doesn't really get better or anything. Yeah, I think I have to keep the setter untapped, just to be able to double block with it and the Chimera, for example. I'm not sure how I can beat the monstrous giant, but that's something to think about later. So now I should be able to kill the Acolyte and block the Disciple. Could also chump block with the Satyr and only eat the Voyaging Satyr, but I think it's more important to get the Acolyte off the table. Yeah, I'm almost dead, but of course I'm going to play it out. Let's see what happens. Okay, this turns into an 8/7. Oh well, 2 life and lost in a labyrinth. Yeah, we aren't winning this. I think I'm just going to concede. Let's see. That was just some good late game, basically. Not much else to say. He rammed into it extremely fast, which means that Stimate Hopes could be great at stopping his early game somewhere in between. On the other hand, he has these huge mana producing creatures which are just going to take over once they get going. So then the hopes aren't going to do enough. I think our best bet is just to win before our opponent takes over with his cards. We kind of have to force him to play our game. That means keeping the flyers and everything in particular. I think I'm going to try it like this again and play first. Not the greatest hand, but I'm going to keep it. I don't have a very good feeling about how this format plays out yet. But with the deck we have, I don't think that we need to take a lot of mulligans because the danger of flooding is really minimal. I also think that our keep in game 2 was fine, even though things didn't work out very nicely for us. Which was also because our opponent had quite the insane draw. No Vaporkins, sadly. Looks like our opponent doesn't have the fastest start either. I'm just going to run out the god herself. Starting to scry as soon as possible has to be better than getting the 2-3 into play. And we should actually be able to kickstart our devotion with the cards we've drawn. Some nice cards our opponent has there. Let's see if we can keep up. Omen Speaker is nice. I'm going to keep that. It's a good blocker and it works well with our curve. It also blocks the Swallower, should that be necessary. So now we can go up to 4 loyalty. Devotion, sorry. Go up to 4. Yeah, I kind of like Omen Speaker Triton here. And Vaporkin, not so sure about. Lost in a Labyrinth, a card I probably want. Let's see, the amount of blue mana symbols without the Chimera is 4. With the Chimera it's 6. So if the Chimera dies, which is the most likely, then I definitely want another blue card. But I have 2 draws to find them. I can just put both of these on top. And then I'll have Lost in the Labyrinth up for anything that should happen. And I can still scry away. I can still scry away the Vaporkin if I don't want it. Okay, no 5th land, no forest for our opponent. So we'll keep Lost in the Labyrinth, draw a card, gain a life, play a land, play a dude, and be quite aggressive. That looks like a chump block, so probably too little too late for our opponent here. He might have the, I still don't know what, feed the pack, feed the hunt. Try to kill the Chimera and then we respond with Lost in a Labyrinth. And otherwise, Thassa is just going to kill our opponent here. Nessian Asp with the Reach. It's not a bad card. Not a bad card at all. So, actually going to put it on top. It's another blue card, and it fits into the curve. So let's see. With the Nessian Asp, it's now a little more difficult for us to get through. So we might just want to make this unblockable and this. And now our opponent goes to 6 from these, with Thessa dealing 5. Our opponent is forced to block Thessa if we attack with everything. No, that's not even true. Yeah, we just attack with Thessa and the 2 flyers, going for a win next turn. Thessa has been absolutely outstanding. We did draft in a way that we wanted to make sure that devotion was met, but she just won us all of our games, basically. And I believe that she'll win us this one as well. Yeah, looks like it. Thank you. And time for the finals.